What's going on, everybody? My name is Andrew Damon. Thank you so much for pressing play on this video. This channel, we talk about the Bible, we talk about the history of the Bible and the context therein. Today, we're talking about something that a lot of different people tend to want to avoid. Unfortunately, it is an avoidable topic in most churches today, and I'll put quotes around that, churches, because a lot of the places that do this, I would not consider them good, solid biblical churches. If your church is a church that does not want to talk about the issues of sexual temptation, it is being, the lack of talking about it is not going to, solve any problems. This is a topic that is mentioned and talked about explicitly in Scripture, and we need to learn how to handle it. For this, we are going to go ahead and start with Matthew chapter 5. I think the lust of the heart is something that every person needs to think about in the context of, is this a problem that we actually struggle with? This is Matthew chapter 5, verse 28. I'll go ahead and start in verse 27, though, because this whole section is about lust. This is the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus is talking about differing subjects and differing problems that people are trying to figure out the answers to. And so Christ is giving his breakdown of each of these things. But when it comes to the topic of lust, he says, "You have heard that it was said, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart." Just think about that. Think about this in the situation of yourself, or maybe someone who's told you something. Committing sexual adultery in your heart. That's paramount to the same thing as committing sexual adultery in real time and actually doing something and acting upon it. If you're going to sit there and think about something like that, it's the same as you doing it. I find it interesting that Christ actually recommends, and it's not just a recommendation, it's actually something that we are told to do. Verse 29, I'll actually move myself up just a hair here. He says down here, he says in verse 29, "If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members," something that is attached to you, "than that your whole body be thrown into hell." Verse 30, "And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members," again, something on you, "than that your whole body go into hell." I want to make something very obviously clear. Christ is not saying that if you watch porn or fall into sexual sin that you're going to go to hell. He's not saying that. He's saying if it causes you, your eye, your arm, your hand, whatever, if it causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. He's not actually suggesting we dismember ourselves. What he's saying is it is better. In fact, he actually uses the phrase, "For it is better that you lose a part of you than for your whole body to be thrown into hell." What he's talking about is this is where it leads to. If this is something that you are caught up in, something that you are continuously enslaved to, it will lead to hell, because you are being given over. You are basically just enthralled in this grip. As somebody who has dealt with temptation for years and years and years and years, I understand this. And trust me, when you get married, it doesn't get any easier. This next part, we're actually gonna go to 1 Corinthians, letter that Paul wrote to the church in Corinth, from verse 12 and onward. He says, "Flee sexual immorality." This is his words on the matter. All things are lawful for me, but not all things are beneficial, or in this case, not all things are helpful. Some versions say beneficial. "All things are lawful for me, but I will not be dominated by anything. Food is meant for the stomach and stomach for the food, and God will destroy both one and the other. The body is not meant for sexual immorality, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body." Okay, so the body's not meant for sexual immorality. "And God raised the Lord, and will also raise us up by his power. Do you not know that your bodies are members of Christ?" We're talking about saved individuals. "Your bodies are members of Christ. Shall I then take the members of Christ and make them members of a prostitute?" shall what has become holy, shall what has become, justified in the eyes of God, be given over to sexual immorality and lustful intent? Never. Verse 16. Or do you not know that he who is joined to a prostitute becomes one body with her? For as it is written, the two will become one flesh. I want to talk real quick about that phrase, one flesh. I really didn't understand what it talked about. It's talked about in the Old Testament too. A son or a daughter will leave their parents and become one with their spouse and all of that. Becoming one flesh, or becoming one, or joining, is a very symbolic thing that doesn't just mean, I'm just going to go and be with them. I'm just going to go and hang out with them. I'm just going to be in their presence. It actually means that you are giving your bodies to each other. The most intimate thing that a person can ever do with another human being is to act upon sexual intimacy. Giving each other a hug, great. Giving each other a little kiss on the cheek, that might awaken a little sparkle, a little something in there. You know what I mean? You can feel a little spark. There's a reason why sexual intimacy is such a huge deal. There's a reason why society and the Bible and all these different sources, whether it's, doing things in real time and acting on things or just reading about it, there's a reason why it's held in such high regard, because it's a gift. The ability to do that freely with a person is a huge deal, which is why you shouldn't be doing it with everybody. These individuals who live their lives just having sex with everybody, and I'm attracted to this person, and Western culture is like, typically you have sex after the third date. Why? Why? What's the drive to do that? Well, because all of us at some point or another want to do that. It's within us to act upon sexual intimacy. I'm going to finish this by making something abundantly clear. If you are a person who deals with sexual temptation, as am I, you need to have something in your life that, in today's day and age with social media and open access to pornography, literally, you, in 2 clicks of a button, the modern day person can look up porn on their phone. Endless free material. And unfortunately, if you dig deep enough in very particular locations on the internet, you can find worse stuff than just someone who's naked. And it's something that, and this is just how sexual temptation works, is that when you're in it, when you delve deep into it, you proceed to thrive and want and be drawn to things that are worse. People who have addictive personalities, they have it worse than others. They do. If you're a person who deals with pornography, if you watch pornography, it doesn't matter if you've watched it once or if you've watched it, every day, or if you've watched it once a month, or I need a way to relax. I can't sleep. I'm just going to watch porn and then be fine. If that's something that you deal with, you need to find somebody in your life to help you, genuinely. That can be the accountability of a spouse. Some spouses don't do well with that. So either the woman who deals with it or the man who deals with it, because it's both, they need to find other people. If you're a proclaiming Christian, you need to find somebody in your church. If you're saying, there's nobody in my church, that's false. That's objectively false. There is somebody in your church that you can go up to and talk to. If you're saying there's nobody in your church just because you're afraid to go talk to them because you're ashamed and all that, I get it. I've been in that position many times. Trust me. And it doesn't get any better by sitting there and not doing anything about it. I'm going to make 2 more observations. The first is that fleeing sexual immorality is the call. That's the command. It's not sit there and fight it. It's not sit there and, I'm just going to think about it. And maybe I'll just do it next time, or, no. What does Joseph do? We talked about Joseph last time, right? What does Joseph do? When he is in the house of Potiphar, his wife comes up to him and wants to seduce him. Joseph tears his clothes away from her grip and he runs away. He doesn't stick around. That's what we need to do. That should be our drive to be holy, to leave and to flee. That's what we need to be doing. The second thing is that you are not strong enough. Doesn't matter who you are or how much willpower you've got, you are not strong enough to say no to it. The reason that we know this is because it's been tested many times, right? The smartest man to ever live was King Solomon, the son of David. King Solomon had hundreds and hundreds of wives. Hundreds. I'm going to say that one more time. Hundreds. And in addition, he had hundreds of something called concubines, which essentially is just another word for people that I can sleep with and have sex with, just meaninglessly at this point, because I'm not joined in one flesh to a person. I'm joined and being pulled sexually between all these different people, which, by the way, I think most of them were pagan, if not all of them were pagan. King Solomon was torn at just all different ways. And he was a saved individual. He was the wisest man to ever live. Wisdom does not save you from sexual temptation. Samson fell into sexual temptation. The strongest man to ever live, Samson, he fell into sexual temptation. So strength does not get you away from it. King David, the father of King Solomon, King David was known as a man after God's own heart. He had a fantastic relationship with God. Whenever we think of like, who's the person in the Bible who had a good relationship with God? David's like on the top 2, right? And so maybe 3. There's a couple of people in Scripture that really had it with God, and they had just that foundational relationship, and so many things happened that was God blessed this individual over and over and over, and David's up there. And David fell into sexual temptation. He looked on the rooftops of the houses around his essentially castle where he lived, and he saw a beautiful woman bathing on the rooftop. He had her brought to him, and they slept together. And then, when he found out that she was married and that she became pregnant by David, he had her husband killed. So not only did he commit sexual temptation and sexual immorality, but he committed murder. And that whole story can be found in the Old Testament. You guys can look that story up. It's a crazy story. So being a man after God's own heart does not save you from sexual temptation. Being the wisest man, the smartest man, all these different, things, wisdom, that doesn't save you. And being the strongest man does not save you. Real quick, I'm going to go over to Proverbs, written by King Solomon. Excuse me. I absolutely love this particular section of Proverbs chapter 7 because it talks so explicitly, and it's such a great thing to break down. We're going to start right here in verse 6. Proverbs chapter 7, verse 6, and we're just going to keep reading for a little bit. For at the window of my house I have looked out through my lattice, which is like the little break, the little space in the wall of kind of a castle, and I have seen among the simple, I have perceived among the youths a young man lacking sense, passing along the street near her corner, taking the road to her house in the twilight, in the evening, at the time of night and darkness. And then, from verse 10 onwards, it goes on to talk about, the events that took place, and she seduces him, and how that road leads to death, and all of that, which is all very necessary to read. But I'm going to just focus on this right here. Okay. For at the window of my house I have looked out through my lattice, and I have seen among the simple, I have perceived among the youth. So young, not a seasoned old person who also falls into this, but a young man lacking sense. Is it possible that King Solomon is attributing this idea of falling quite easily into sexual temptation, having that alarm not go off, that, this is something, there's something here, and this is a temptation, the identification that it's a temptation, all these different things. Is it possible that he's saying that that's not happening because of the lacking sense? Is it possible that we as individual Christians need to not lack sense? We need to exercise that muscle. We need to constantly be taking in information. We need to constantly be aware of our surroundings. I'm going to go into Walmart. Remember when there was a magazine section in Walmart and there was bikinied up women sprawled across motorcycles? I remember being a kid and walking down the aisle because I happened to be right next to the electronics where I could stand there and look up for an hour while my parents shopped and I'd play the PlayStation. And by the time I was done, my neck would hurt. And it became a thing where I was no longer really doing it to go play video games. I was doing it so I could walk past the magazine section. Oh, I can take just a quick little glance. I didn't have a phone. I was born in 97, so I was literally early 2000s. 2004, 2005. Now, I wasn't necessarily looking at them for sexual reasons, but I knew that it was there, and I knew that I shouldn't look at it. And then eventually, because we were out of the country for a couple of years, I came back with that sort of being more established, and so I knew it was there, and so I kept doing it. And eventually, I'm just gonna go look at the books. But then around the corner, there's a magazine section, just stupid stuff like that. It's easy to take somebody like that, a situation like that, and say, oh, man, you were just a kid, or that's stupid, that's dumb. You guys realize that, biblically speaking, if you've looked at pornography once and someone else has looked at pornography 100,000 times, you're just as bad as them. Because you committed sexual lust, sexual adultery in your heart. Flee from sexual immorality. It doesn't say stick around. It says run away. Run away. Put those things in your lives. If you're looking for something that will definitely be able to help, there is a app that you can download called Covenant Eyes. That's something I have. It's helped me so much. It's kept me accountable to my wife, and it's been a huge help, massively. And this is just a warning. People often look at you in today's society and say, just do it one more time. Just do it one more time. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Guys, depending on who you are as a person, okay, if that's the route that you take for relief or to make you feel good or because you just had a great victory at work and, I get to come home and celebrate. How am I going to celebrate? Well, just whatever. There's pornography. That'll make me feel good. Pornography is literally makes all their money, billions of dollars every year, simply by just not saying no. Just not saying no. And now all these actors and actresses that do this for lots of money, they have big houses and sports cars, and they're living the high life. But they're hopped up on all these drugs. And I don't mean drugs that like cocaine and stuff. I'm talking about which I'm sure some of them are. I'm talking about like drugs that they take to heighten their performance at work because their jobs are to film pornography videos. That's what their jobs is. And if you ever see there's these interviews that they can do sometimes and they come on these podcasts and whatnot. If you ever sit and watch one of these just for a few minutes, you can tell how different they are just because there isn't that sort of that societal just break. Like there's like this just respect level. Like, hey, I am a person. I am not going to subject myself to the lowest form of human expression of love, which is every person has in their heart, mind, and soul. I say that that's the lowest form because it's literally instilled in every person to do this. It's like one of the most basic instincts of humanity is to act sexually. That's why people who have brain diseases, people who are born maybe with Down syndrome, stuff like that, they might not be there mentally all the way, but the one thing that they have a drive for is procreation. That's just in everybody. And it's not just us, it's the animal kingdom too. It's everywhere. And society holds to this idea, at least most of society in different places, that I'm going to do that with a person, with one person. And that's a solely Christian invention. Because you look back in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. You look back in the days of Moses. You look back in the days of Noah. Why did God destroy the earth with water? Because the heart of every person on the planet was fundamentally wicked, and God wiped it out. These people were just acting upon everything. And it wasn't just sexual temptation. It wasn't just sexual immorality. It was everything. But that's what happens. And so because that's the society we live in, we have to protect ourselves. And it's to a point where it doesn't matter if we protect ourselves or not. We're looked at as dumb and crazy because we do that. So hopefully that helped. If you guys need genuine prayer, please put that in the comment section. If you also have any questions about verses or chapters, history, context, whatever the case may be, please feel free to ask me in the comment section. I will be sure to answer your question and give you a shout out here on the show. I post Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. every morning. So when you wake up, it should be there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.